Okay, so yes, so you are not going to ask AI to find these things for you because it hallucinates very often and it will fabricate something. Do not ask AI to write your reflection on your own situated experience. By definition, obviously, doesn't have your experience. So anything it produces there is generic filler, and markers are specifically looking for that. Do not copy an AI generated citation into your reference list without independently verifying yourself that the source exists at that URL with that content. A citation that looks correctly formatted is not the same as a citation that is real. And do not submit AI generated analysis or argument as your own without substantially reworking it in your own words and thinking. Each of these 4 points isn't just risky, it's exactly the failure mode this assignment is built to expose and which will lead to disciplinary action. So why are fabricated sources checkable and why do we check them? It's worth understanding exactly why this is checkable because it should change how you approach your own research, not just how you avoid getting caught. A real citation survives a click. Publication, author, date, and headline that we can actually go and find exactly as it is described. A fabricated one doesn't. An invented headline, a wrong date, or a URL that leads nowhere is immediately visible in like a 2-minute check. And we are going to check that in the assignments. And the standard being applied is verifiability, not prestige. A short wire report or a smaller, less glamorous outlet correctly and honestly cited earns full marks for the sub-questions, whereas a polished looking but invented citation does not, no matter how convincing it reads. So the practical lesson here that you must remember is don't try and impress us with a source, rather just go and find a right one that actually exists. So how do you find your own sources? Start very specific. Search the actual event and not the theory. Searching for the SA-US tariff dispute plus a rough date range will get you far further than searching for abstract phrases like news flow imbalance. Secondly, vary your source type deliberately, especially for 1.2b. You need one piece from a global wire agency, something like Reuters, AP, or Bloomberg, and then one from an African outlet. And you'll get better results searching for these as two separate targeted searches rather than a combined one. Thirdly, check the date against what the question is actually asking. 1.4b, for example, specifically wants a development that occurred since the stimulus article. So if what you find predates that, it simply doesn't satisfy the requirement, however good the source otherwise is. And fourth, read past the headline. You need the actual content, the frame, the quote, the specific detail to do the comparison or illustration the question is asking you to build. And then before you cite it, do this verification checklist. Can you personally open the article at the URL you're about to cite? Does the publication author and date you're about to write down match what's genuinely on the page? Is the article actually about the SA-US tariff dispute specifically and not a different similar sounding story that came up in your search? Have you recorded the full citation details right while the page is open in front of you because you will not remember the exact URL and date later? And going back is going to waste your time. And finally, does the source actually do the analytical work the question is asking for, or have you just found a source that happens to exist without it actually helping your argument? The last one is where students will most likely lose marks, even if you have a perfectly real citation. Real but unused or real but not analyzed. So let's move on to the actual content of the assignment. In the introduction, it is worth 2.5 marks. You must ask yourself 3 things as you draft your introduction. Have you actually contextualized the dispute in your own words, or have you just repeated the stimulus article back at the reader? Have you named the specific concepts from Learning Unit 4 and 7 that your essay is going to use, not vaguely gestured at communication theory, but named the actual theories? And does your introduction tell the reader how you will structure your essay, not just what the topic is about? For where to look, revisit Learning Unit 4, Section 4.1, on news as a commodity, and Learning Unit 7, Section 7.1 on migration, diplomacy, and tourism as forms of international communication. That's the framing language your introduction should be drawing on, and not a summary of the article itself. Then we move to 1.2. This is for 3 marks. 1.2a is for 3 marks, and it asks for the concept of international news flow, plus the theoretical framework explaining its direction. Here you must test yourself. Can you define international news flow in a single sentence, in your own words, without looking it up? Can you name and explain what a theory of news flow direction actually predicts? Not just recite its name, but say what it means for how news actually moves between countries. And are you confident you can explain out loud the difference between world systems theory and dependency theory? If you hesitated on that last one, that's exactly the confusion we are flagging most often. Go back to Learning Unit 4, sections 4.2.1 through 4.2.3, and make sure that you can articulate the distinction and not just recognize both names. 1.2b and C, they work together and they're worth 7 marks between them. For B, have you actually found 2 real current separately sourced articles, one from a global wire agency, one from an African outlet, and not simply relied on the stimulus article itself, dressed up as your comparison? And are you comparing how each one frames the story, rather than just summarizing each in turn without drawing the comparison out explicitly? For C, the newsworthiness factors, have you picked specific factors and shown with real specificity how Grassland or Guo and Vargo support them? The question explicitly wants those 2 readings tied in, not Learning Unit 4's factors listed on your own. Revisit Learning Unit 4, Section 4.3.1 for the factors themselves, and then go back to slides 9 and 10 of this session for how to actually go and find and verify the 2 real articles that Part B needs. Slides, then we move to framing theory and its relevance. This is for 3 marks. Check yourself. Can you define a media frame properly without just substituting the word bias? Framing is a more precise concept than bias, and we will notice the difference. Can you explain why framing choices are rarely neutral? What actually shapes a reporter's or an outlet's framing decisions? And have you connected framing specifically to international news, rather than describing media framing in general terms that could apply to any news story anywhere? Go back to Learning Unit 4, Section 4.2.4 for the theory itself, and look again at the Ethiopian elections case study in the study guide, not for content to lift, but as a model of how a theoretical comparison like this gets built and structured. For 1.3b and C, here we look at they have 7 marks combined, and B is the single highest value subsection in this whole section at 5 marks on its own. Here you'll check, have you found a real headline or extract that clearly illustrates each of the 2 frames, conflict and economic or developmental? Or have you accidentally illustrated the same frame twice from 2 different articles? Is that illustrative material properly cited, both in the body of your text and in your list of sources consulted? Both, not just one. And for part C, are you actually discussing a consequence of the framing pattern? What it does, who it affects, what impression it creates, rather than simply restating what the 2 frames are, which you've already covered in part B. For C specifically, Learning Unit 4's case study 4.3, the WTO Congress analysis, is a useful model for the kind of consequences this question wants you thinking about. 1.4 deals with defining diplomacy and its subforms. 1.4a is for 4 marks. And here you must ask yourself, can you define diplomacy itself cleanly before you even get into the 3 subforms? Can you distinguish formal or secret diplomacy, closed-door diplomacy, and open diplomacy from each other? Not just list all 3, but say specifically what makes each one different from the others. And have you matched a specific moment from the stimulus article to one of these subforms and explained why it fits there, rather than just asserting that it does? This is entirely in Learning Unit 7, Section 7.4, right at the start of the diplomacy material. The definitions themselves are there. Matching them to the article's specific events is the analytical work that you need to do yourself. Then 1.4b and C, This is for 6 marks combined. For B, you need to explain why formal or closed-door channels are considered more appropriate for sensitive bilateral disputes. Why do they actually protect the negotiators from? And critically, have you found a real dated development in the dispute that comes after the stimulus article, not before it, and not simply restating what the article already told you? The date check matters here enormously. For C, are you using specific named findings from Mutisia, Maluki, and Adar's 2024 study, actual statistics or claims from that paper, rather than a general impression of the reading was about digital diplomacy? Go back to Learning Unit 7, Section 7.4 for the reasoning behind B, and go back to the Mutisia et al. Article itself directly for C, not a summary of it from memory. Then 1.5A and B, 6 marks combined. For A, have you classified the tariffs correctly as an exercise of hard or soft power? And can you actually justify that classification rather than just asserting it? A sharper answer also has something worth saying about the channel that the announcement used, social media, versus its actual content. Think about whether those two things point in the same direction or not. For B, can you distinguish public diplomacy from media diplomacy? These are related but genuinely different concepts in Learning Unit 7, and treating them as interchangeable is a very common way for you to lose marks. So both of these are then directly in Learning Unit 7, Section 7.4. The definitions are there, the application to this specific dispute, and any critical observation about the channel versus content mismatch is the part that you will need to build yourself. And then 1.5C, South Africa's public diplomacy and soft power strategy. This is for 4 marks, and it's the last of the 4 independent research subsections. Here you must ask yourself, are you using Achieng Kiamba and Kagwanja's actual argument, their case for dialogue-based two-way public diplomacy, or have you just cited their names without engaging with what they actually claim? Have you found a real current named example of South African public diplomacy, a specific statement, a campaign, or a diplomatic visit, not a vague gesture at South Africa's diplomatic efforts? And have you explained why that example illustrates the reading's argument, rather than just describing the example and on its own and leaving the connection implicit? Go back to Achieng et al. Directly for their argument and to your own current search, using the same search and verification approach that we've discussed earlier for your example. Then conclusion, ask yourself, this is for 2.5 marks. Have you actually synthesized across both learning units? So you have to draw a genuine connection between the international news flow material and the diplomacy and soft power material. So don't just summarize one section at a time. Have you introduced any genuinely new material here that really should have been argued earlier in the essay instead? Remember, you should never introduce new information in a conclusion. And importantly, does your conclusion actually sound different from your introduction? While it should echo your introduction, it shouldn't just be restating the same framing sentence twice. Then finally, let's just look a bit at technical presentation requirements. This is for 5 marks. This also includes the AI declaration. Please don't forget to include the correct AI declaration or the honesty declaration. It is already on my UNISA. If you don't include the correct one, you will lose all 5 marks for technical presentation. But what's also very important is formatting, 12-point font, 1.5 line spacing, 2.5 margins on all sides. Structure, it must be a title page, followed by your declaration, followed by your table of contents, then your clearly numbered subsection, and then your list of sources consulted. We are using the UNISA Harvard style for referencing, and you need to apply it consistently, both in text and in your list of sources consulted. And one specific point that is important here, every source that you locate yourself for the 4 independent research sub-questions need an in-text citation at the point where you use it, and it must be correctly and fully formatted in your reference list, an entry in your reference list. So a citation in only one of those 2 places is incomplete. Some common pitfalls, and we have drawn this from previous semesters where we've seen where students lose marks. So Naming a theory correctly, but not explaining what it actually predicts. Don't just name it. Show what it says and what it means for your case. Conflating the different theories. These two theories explain different things, so you must keep their claims and their focus separate. Then a comparing tone. One was more sympathetic instead of mechanism, which is tied to a specific reading's finding. You need to go beyond tone. You need to analyze how and why the frame works in each article. Don't illustrate the same frame twice instead of both frames once each. Find one clear example for each frame from your sources. Remember, public diplomacy and media diplomacy are not interchangeable. You need to be able to explain what makes each distinct and why that distinction matters. Then a real citation that appears in text but not in the reference list or vice versa. I've mentioned this now repeatedly. Every in-text citation must have a matching reference list entry and it must be correct. And then a conclusion that merely restates the introduction instead of synthesizing the issue. Your conclusion is important, even though it's only for 2.5 marks, because it brings your argument together. And you need to answer this question with insight and not just repetition. Here is just a little short pre-submission checklist for yourself. Every theory that you've named, you can explain in 1 or 2 sentences. Every real source that you've cited, you've personally opened and verified. For 1.2b, 1.3b, 1.4b, and 1.5c, each cite source that you found yourself. It's not from the stimulus article. Every citation appears both in text and in your list of sources consultant. Your conclusion adds synthesis, and your font, spacing, margins, numbering, referencing style all match the brief. And now, students, it is over to you. I'm going to stop sharing, and I am going to open the floor to questions. I see in Suku, you are already typing. If you have a question, you are also more than welcome to just unmute your microphone and ask me what you need to ask, since we are only a very small group. I'm just going to wait until you've finished typing your question. With the integrity declaration letter, there is a section where, let me just quickly bring it up so that I can double check. I know that there is a witness section. There's always been a witness section in the old one, in the old declaration letter, but this is one of those things where nitpicking, you will lose up to just half a mark if that is missing. But I'm just quickly looking at that. Just give me a second. If I can find that now in here in my documents. Sorry. I'm just scrolling through my documents now to see where that is. Sorry, let me check if it's here. Declaration of originality. I'm going to quickly show you. I'm going to quickly just share my screen, then you can see exactly where it is. It is actually quite clear where it is. So you should be able to see. There's the Declaration of Originality. There you are, there's your name, your module code, student number, signature date, and there is your witness name and surname, signature date. You must tick those boxes. That is part of the declaration, and you need to complete each one of these questions. So, and be honest about how you are using AI tools. Remember, we said it's not a case of you not being allowed to use it, but you need to use it ethically and also explain to us exactly how you used it. And this is what this page, this form is for. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions at this moment? If not, what I'll do is I will end the recording and I will end the session. I will post this also now on my UNISA. We have one more assignment prep session next week. Please remember that the new due date for the assignment is next week, Friday. So you have an extra 4 days. It's now due on the 28th and no longer on the 24th. So you still have some extra time. I really appreciate the two of you joining me today. I see, sorry, two types. I'm going to wait. Okay. No, it's only a pleasure. Um, yes. So if you want to join the next session, it is a late afternoon session. I'm hoping that more students will be able to attend. Then you can, I said this in the previous session as well, you can, because you've now run through the whole um, uh, because you've now run through the whole PowerPoint, you can join half an hour into that session. Yes, you are more than welcome to exchange details. Unfortunately, we are not opening a WhatsApp group. Let me just explain why. It has to do with the POPIA Act. So the lecturers themselves are not opening a WhatsApp group. There's been several sort of discussion amongst the or from sort of the higher ups at UNISA with regards to whether we are allowed to do it and whether not. And in the case of us opening a session like opening a WhatsApp group like that, we are then liable because we are putting everyone's information out there, unfortunately. So we are not doing any broadcast groups, etc. at this point. But yes, you are more than welcome to exchange information if you want to. And yes, if you want to join next week's session, you can join half an hour into the session. So then it'll be question and answer session again. And then if you have any questions left over, we can then answer questions then. Thank you so much once again. Have a good Thursday and Friday, and best of luck with your preparations. Goodbye, students.
Space. Sure. Sure. It's a space. 是，咱们在，意思那个，这样子是，space distance，yeah。是，但是不可能是，这样子基本的感觉是，我这样子，现在是那个什么，跟我感觉这个是，是，是更什么？ Você? Ah, ești pe space să nu. Acum calçar. Look at that. You can see movie.
Let your music taste shine with premium. Sit down with your friends and share your favorite songs with the entire squad without a lunch break. You can also play your favorite albums in any order with unlimited skits.
Why go la chef one banana? Oh, when you